My granddaughter forged my signature on a house deed. I found out when a man knocked to measure the curtains. I offered him tea and took out my pen. He thought I was the help, smiled politely, called me ma'am, and started measuring the living room windows like he owned the place. I let him. I watched him move, careful and confident, talking about custom rods and blackout panels. When he asked if the new owner would be coming by, I told him she might be late, stuck in traffic or trouble. He laughed. I didn't. After he left, I sat on the floor, right there by the window he touched, and opened the drawer where I kept my papers. The deed was gone. So was the extra key. I had my suspicions weeks ago, missed calls, short answers, a sudden rush to get my affairs in order. But I never thought she'd go that far. Not her. Not my little girl's little girl. The one I took in, when no one else did. The one I fed, when her mother forgot. I didn't cry. I made toast. I buttered it to the edge, just the way she used to like it, and I ate it in silence. I wasn't confused. I was calculating. My name was still on the taxes. My slippers were still by the door. They thought I was done, that my bones were too soft and my brain too slow. But I wasn't gone. I wasn't dead. I was planting something. I wasn't always this quiet. I used to hum while folding laundry. I'd recite spelling words while stirring soup. I used to walk through this house like I belonged to it, because I did. Every wall, every drawer, every creak in the floor, I knew them, the way a mother knows a child's cry in the night. I raised my children with paper and patience. When they were little, I sat them down with thank you cards and made them write every name clear and proud, even when their hands cramped. I told them grace begins with gratitude. I taught them to say sorry, to pass the bowl before serving themselves, to never leave a guest standing. I ironed shirts in silence, paid bills in cash, tucked in receipts behind receipts, and no one ever asked me how it all got done. But it was always done. I worked late at the school, typing letters that other people signed. I ran the copier till it squeaked, shelved books at the library for free, and brought home extra pencils just in case someone forgot theirs. I packed lunches with sandwiches they'd trade away and notes they never read. But I wrote them anyway. I didn't raise them to notice me. I raised them to feel safe. I was the one who picked up forgotten jackets, the one who filled out field trip slips, the one who knew their shoe sizes without looking. I kept calendars they didn't check and reminders they never thanked me for. I saved every birthday card, even the ones with just their names, even the ones they forgot to sign. I cooked. I taught. I remembered their stories when they forgot mine. I didn't expect applause. I just wanted peace. I thought that if I kept giving, I'd never be empty. But there's a different kind of silence when the house you filled forgets your name. It's not quiet, it's hollow. And still, I cooked. I taught. I remembered their stories when they forgot mine. I remember them now. My daughter's scuffed ballet shoes. My son's chipped front tooth. The first time my granddaughter scribbled her name in blue crayon, it looked nothing like mine back then. Funny how good she got at copying later. Funny how some things you teach too well. It started quiet. Just little things that didn't sit right. My granddaughter asked me one afternoon if I still had the deed to the house, said something about needing it for paperwork. Her tone was casual, too casual. She had that sing-song voice she used when she was trying not to sound rehearsed. I told her it was in my locked drawer, safe with the rest. She nodded too fast, smiled too wide, and I didn't think more of it. She was always organized, I told myself, always thinking ahead. She probably just wanted to make sure things were tidy. A responsible young woman, that's what I told myself. A week later, I went to find an old letter, one my late husband wrote me back in '78, on a napkin from his work trip to Denver. It was always in that drawer, tucked under the deed. But when I opened it, the napkin was gone. The papers were too neat, too flat, like they'd just been sorted. I stood there for a while, holding the empty envelope like maybe it would answer something. Maybe it fell. Maybe I moved it. I told myself that. I checked 3 times that day. But the drawer didn't lie. It had been opened. And not by me. Then there were the printer pages. Thick, legal ones I didn't know how to read. I found them face down near the trash. Heavy words like transfer, title, authorization. My eyes aren't what they were, but I knew enough to feel the chill in them. I asked my granddaughter about it. She laughed, said it was just her applying for a job. "They ask for weird stuff now, Nana," she said. I nodded. I smiled, but my stomach didn't. Something in me pulled back, like watching storm clouds but not yet hearing thunder. I asked her again the next week, said I was feeling a little uneasy, like I'd misplaced something. Her face changed. Not angry, worse, patient, like I was an old clock ticking wrong. "You've been forgetting a lot lately, Nana," she said. "It's okay. Everyone your age does." She kissed my forehead and turned the television up. I sat there, quiet. That kiss burned colder than any winter. But still, I didn't want to believe it. She must be stressed. She's young. Maybe she just needed help. Maybe she thought she was doing the right thing. Maybe I'd said something confusing. I've repeated myself before, said the same story twice in one afternoon. That happens. It doesn't mean I'm gone. It doesn't mean I don't see. I started writing notes to myself again, like I used to do in my working days, little reminders. Drawer locked. Check taxes. Ask again. I hid them in my pockets. I didn't want her to worry. I didn't want her to think I didn't trust her. But the truth was growing roots, and I could feel it pressing up through the floor. The kind of truth that doesn't make a sound, it just settles in your bones. She started making more tea than usual, brought me my slippers before I asked, told me to rest, to relax, to enjoy things. And I did, or I pretended to. But every sweet word started to taste like goodbye. I wanted to be wrong. I prayed I was wrong. She must be stressed. She's young. Maybe she just needed help. The envelope was thick, the kind that never brings good news. It was placed on my breakfast tray, right between the toast and the jam, like it belonged there. My name was typed on the front. Too clean, too official. I opened it slow. My fingers already knew before my eyes did. Eviction. From the house I swept for 50 years. The home where I planted rose bushes and buried a cat named Lucky under the oak. The house I signed for with trembling hands and a beating heart. The house where I sang lullabies to 3 generations. Evicted. And not by strangers. Not by banks. By her. My granddaughter. I remember blinking at the words, thinking there had to be a mistake. But there wasn't. I flipped through the pages, my breath starting to skip like a record with a crack. There it was, my name in ink. In smooth, perfect cursive. My signature. Except it wasn't mine. It was hers. A mirror of the strokes I taught her when she was 5. Sitting at this very table. Make the letters proud, I'd say. Let them stand tall. She did. She used everything I gave her. The fountain pen I taught her to write with? She used one just like it to erase me. The power of attorney papers came next. Dated. Notarized. Filed. She had it all covered. Said I had agreed months ago. That I wanted her to handle things. That I didn't need to worry anymore. And while I was counting pills and knitting scarves, she was emptying my bank account, closing things in silence. I checked the balance on my savings. $50. Just enough to make me feel mocked. I asked my daughter her mother what was going on. She looked at me with soft eyes and said, "It's all for your safety, Granny." Like I was a risk, a danger, a problem to be solved gently. She touched my shoulder like you do with animals that spook easy. "We're just trying to help. It's better this way." Better for who? They smiled through it, like it was a favor. Like I should be grateful they hadn't put me in a room with no windows. My kitchen was no longer mine. My tea was made for me. My chair was moved. My calendar erased. I stood in the hallway that morning and watched as she carried out a box of my old notebooks. "Too dusty," she said. "Just old stuff." But that was me in there. My scribbles. My memories. The little facts no one else remembered. The names of cousins. The dates of baptisms. The smell of my husband's shaving cream. They didn't take everything all at once. That would have been too honest. They took it slowly, bit by bit. A drawer, a key, a login, a voice. Until one day, I opened my mouth, and nothing inside it felt like mine anymore. And through it all, They kept smiling. They still kissed my cheek, still brought me slippers, still called me Granny, as if I couldn't feel the walls closing in, as if I didn't see my name disappearing off documents, off bank statements, off deeds, like snow melting without anyone noticing. I had become the ghost of a house I paid for. And still, they smiled. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even tell them I knew. That was the part they never expected the silence. I moved slower, nodded more, played the part they'd written for me. I let them believe the housecoat meant I was fading, that the crossword puzzles were the peak of my cognition, that I didn't notice passwords changing and keys missing. But while they were plotting, I was writing. Every night, when the house dimmed and they assumed I'd drifted off in front of the television, I pulled out a notebook, one they hadn't found. I kept it under the cushion of the chair they thought I never sat in. I labeled it plainly, grocery list. Inside, it held dates, names, transactions. What they said, what they took, what they moved. I used ink, not pencil. I wanted it permanent. They thought my mind was slipping. I was writing my war. The library still had my card on file. The young girl at the desk asked if I needed help logging into the catalog. I smiled and told her I knew my way. I went straight to the law section. Saturday there for 3 hours. Reading about elder rights and property fraud. Took notes like I was back in school. My hands ached, but I wrote through it. Every clause, every example. Quietly, carefully. I checked out 2 books. Tucked them inside a plastic bag with a loaf of bread, so no one would think twice. When I came home, I smiled like I'd been out for a walk. A week later, I called Marion. We hadn't spoken in years, not since her hip surgery. But her voice was the same. Warm, strong. She used to work at the county clerk's office. Knew all the forms. Knew the notary. Said she'd come by for tea. She did. We sat like old times, butter cookies and all. But in between bites, I showed her the notebook. Her eyes narrowed. "You've got a case," she said. I didn't smile. I just nodded. That night, I added a page to my journal, Marion Witness. I didn't trust printers. I wrote it all by hand. Every event. The day the drawer was opened. The first time I heard her use legal words. The bank statements. The false signature. I copied my real signature 50 times on a separate sheet. I wrote a comparison where my loops fell, where hers didn't. I even included the kind of pen I used. Everything. Word by word. They were writing me off. I was writing myself back in. I didn't confront. I confirmed. She came in one night, humming, and asked if I needed help taking my pills. I said I'd already taken them. I hadn't. But she didn't check. She never checked. She thought she didn't have to anymore. That I wasn't paying attention. I was. Every day, in silence, I watched her pack her lies into neat sentences. I watched the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't listening. I logged it. I logged everything. Even the exact time the printer whirred in the night. Even the brand of tea she served when she wanted something. I wasn't screaming. I was writing. The lawyer thought I was lost when I walked in. I could see it in his eyes, polite, but dismissive. Another old woman with too many papers and not enough clarity. He started to explain things slowly, like I was made of dust. I let him finish. Then I opened my notebook. Set it on the table like a brick. Dates, names, amounts. Cross-referenced. Annotated. He leaned in. Then he stopped blinking so much. Page after page, I showed him everything. The fake signature side by side with the real one. The forged power of attorney filed without my presence. The withdrawal slips from my account with someone else's handwriting. My hand was steady the whole time. I never stuttered. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. He called in his paralegal. Then another attorney. They all stood around my book like it was gold. "You wrote all this?" he asked. I nodded. Every word. He asked how long I'd known. I told him, long enough to be ready. He smiled then. Not at me at the precision. Said most people don't come in with half this much. I didn't respond. I wasn't there for compliments. He sent the documents for analysis. My granddaughter's signature didn't stand a chance. It was clean, yes, Confident, yes, but it wasn't mine. And I had written mine 1,000 times before she was even born. The analyst's report came back faster than expected. Forged. Clear as day. And once that piece dropped, everything followed like dominoes. We filed to revoke the fraudulent power of attorney. It was granted. Quietly. No fuss. Just a stamped approval in the mail. Addressed to me. The real me. My name. Correct and untouched. We sent notarized letters to the bank. Froze the accounts. Reclaimed the title. The house came back to me like a bird returning home after a storm. Tired. Ruffled. But mine. And when it did, I didn't tell them. Not right away. I just moved the chair back to where I liked it. Restocked my pantry the way I used to. Turned the lock on my bedroom door again, not because I needed to hide, but because I could. She came in one day and noticed the mail. Noticed the folder sitting on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. I said nothing. Just poured my tea and kept reading. She picked it up anyway. Read the top page. Her face didn't fall. It froze. She looked at me like she'd just seen a ghost. "You did this?" she whispered. I looked her in the eye and said, "With my pen." That was all. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't throw her out. That would have been too loud. Too easy. I let her leave on her own. She packed slowly, like she still couldn't believe it. I didn't help. I didn't stop her. I just sat at the window and watched the wind carry leaves across the yard. Peaceful. Precise. The lawyer called later to tell me we could press charges. I said no. I didn't want prison. I wanted silence. I wanted my floors to creak for me again. I wanted to sleep with my door open. I wanted my name back on the mailbox without a whisper of shame. So I walked home. Not from court, not from a grand confrontation. Just from the corner store where I bought a fresh journal and a new pen. I didn't raise my voice. Just my pen. And with it, I took everything back. Quietly. The house was never just wood and brick. It was birthdays and burnt pies, school photos taped to the fridge, the sound of my husband's boots in the hall. But after everything, it felt different. The air was heavier, like betrayal had seeped into the insulation. I didn't cry over it. I made a list. I made appointments. I found a realtor who didn't ask too many questions, just showed up with his clipboard and his camera. He said the place had great bones. I nodded. So did I. And both of us were still standing. She came by once, my granddaughter. Just walked in like nothing had changed. Said she was checking in, eyes darting around like she could feel something slipping. She asked about dinner plans. Smiled like we were still close. I told her I wasn't cooking that night. Told her she might want to get used to that. She didn't get it, not yet. But the walls did. They knew it was our last supper. Except there was no supper. Just silence. I signed the sale papers in a navy blue sweater. Same one I wore when I first moved in. It had holes in the cuffs, but it felt right. The pen glided across the page. Not shaky, not rushed. Just final. My name real, legal, unbroken. The buyers were kind. Young couple. 2 dogs. They asked what I'd planted in the backyard. I told them roses and a lesson. They didn't ask what kind. The money hit my account 2 days later. Clean. Uncontested. Mine. I blocked their numbers before I sent the letter. 1 copy to my granddaughter. 1 to her mother. Handwritten. No return address. Just 1 line. Your inheritance has been redistributed thoughtfully. I folded each note in 3, slid them into cream envelopes, and sealed them with tape, not spit. No sentiment. Just certainty. They expected a funeral. I sent a closing notice. The funny thing about houses is, people think they last forever. But forever only lives in the names on the papers. And mine was the only one that mattered. They couldn't claim what they tried to steal. Not legally. Not morally. I had it written and witnessed, filed and finalized. Even the lawyer said it was airtight. They'll have no standing, he told me. I told him that's the point. I bought myself a smaller place. 2 rooms and a porch. Enough for quiet. Enough for me. I planted new roses, just white this time. Clean and sharp. Like a blank page. They never responded to the letter. Or maybe they did, and I never saw it. I wasn't looking. I didn't need to. I had already said everything I needed with a deed transfer and a bank slip. I didn't yell. I sold it. They called. I didn't pick up. The first message came the day after the letter arrived, my granddaughter's voice. Soft and broken, like a child again. She said she was confused, that she wanted to talk, that maybe we could clear the air. I listened to it once, then deleted it. The second message was longer. She cried, said she made a mistake, said family should forgive. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, because I was done. There's a difference. Then came the flowers, big arrangements, bright and expensive. One with lilies, one with sunflowers. She remembered those were my favorite. I gave them to the church that same day. Sister June said they'd look nice by the altar. I told her not to mention my name. The cards didn't say much. Just love always, and thinking of you. No apologies, no truth, just noise dressed in petals. She didn't stop. A box came next, old photos of us, tied with ribbon, a scarf I'd knitted her years ago, folded on top. She was trying to rewind something, to stitch a past over a wound she made. But I wasn't interested in memory games. I packed it up and left it at the community center. Someone else could use the warmth. Cousin Ruth called me cold in a Facebook post, said I was being cruel in my old age, that I was letting bitterness win. She wasn't there when I had to explain to the bank why my money was missing. She didn't see my name erased from my own life. Let them talk. I gave them years of silence when they needed words. When I asked for the truth and got distractions. When I reached out with love and got paperwork in return. Let them talk. Their noise doesn't reach me here. Some nights, I hear the phone buzz from across the room. I let it. I don't move. I sit with my tea and the book I'm reading and let it pass like a car down the street. I no longer walk for them. They had their chance. They had hundreds of dinners, birthdays, Sundays. They chose shortcuts over conversation, power over love. Now, I choose peace. I choose stillness. I choose not answering. The phone still rings, but it doesn't ring for me. Not anymore. My new place is small, but it holds everything I need. A chair by the window, a kettle that whistles, a table with one cup and no apologies. I make my coffee slow in the mornings now. Real slow. No one's rushing me. No one's asking me where the sugar is or if I've seen their keys. Just quiet. Honest quiet. The kind that doesn't hide anything. I sit by the window and watch the neighbors walk their dogs. There's a boy across the hall who nods at me every morning. Doesn't know my name, doesn't pretend to. It's nice. There are no family photos on the walls here. Just a painting of a lake I found at a secondhand shop and a mirror that shows me exactly as I am. No softer, no smaller. Just me. And that's enough. I didn't come here to decorate the past. I came to live forward. One of the first things I did was rewrite my will. Properly. No assumptions. No family names unless they've earned the ink. I gave most of it to scholarships. Some to a shelter. Some to a woman I once worked with who sent me a Christmas card every year without fail. I wrote her name in careful script. It felt right. It felt clean. I also rewrote my own story, not the one they told about me, the one they whispered when I left the room. Number I wrote, the one I lived, page by page, what I built, what I gave, what I survived. I wrote about love, about late nights in the school office, filing grades for teachers who went home hours earlier, about the time I drove through a snowstorm just to get a birthday cake for my daughter, about planting basil in the windowsill so my granddaughter could smell something green in winter, about the time I stood in court and took my name back without raising my voice. And I wrote about now, about the way light falls in my little living room, about the pen I keep beside my chair, always. It's not just for bills or crossword puzzles. It's for me, for whatever I want to write. I make lists again, grocery lists, book lists, small thoughts that pass through and deserve catching. Sometimes I think about who I was in that big house, quiet, giving, waiting. I thought being needed meant being loved. I thought disappearing into usefulness was the right way to stay close. But I was wrong. You can give everything and still be left out in the cold. But here, in this tiny flat with its chipped sink and wobbly drawers, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Space. Not just room to move, but room to be, to think, to breathe, to rest without guilt, to want without shame. They said I was the burden, too forgetful, too fragile, too much. But maybe I wasn't the burden after all. Maybe I was just inconvenient to their plans. Maybe I was only too much when I started asking for something back. And maybe that's exactly when I became just enough for myself. So I drank my coffee warm, not rushed. I turned the pages of my book with steady fingers. I sleep with the window cracked just enough to hear the world but not be taken by it. I didn't need to be remembered. I needed to remember myself. I didn't think anyone would care to hear my story. Not really. I thought it was just one more old woman's sorrow, another wrinkle in a world that doesn't look too closely at our faces. But then, one Tuesday afternoon, I walked into the little community hall down the street, just looking for somewhere warm to sit. They were having a writing circle. 5 women, all older than time if you asked the world, but sharp as needles if you listened close. One was writing about her garden, another about her son who hadn't called in 8 years. They passed around tea in paper cups and called each other by name like they'd never been forgotten. I sat quietly the first time, just listened. But on my second visit, I brought a page from my journal. Just one. I read it out loud. My voice didn't shake. When I finished, there was silence. Not the uncomfortable kind, the reverent kind. Then one woman, Esther, leaned in and said, "My daughter forged my pension documents last year." Another, Joan, said her nephew used her name to take out a loan. Ruth, who always wore bright lipstick, whispered that her grandson took her car and sold it. And she still makes him birthday calls. We sat with our tea and our stories and our pens, and something in the room grew strong. We started meeting every week. No one asked for permission. No one waited for their turn to matter. We brought pages and pens. We wrote letters. Not texts. Not emails. Real letters. With dates and names and facts and feelings, too. We mailed them to courthouses, to banks, to lawyers, to newspapers. We mailed them to each other. Each envelope was like a tiny revolution. Some were signed with trembling hands, some with bold strokes. But all of them carried the same truth. We weren't silent anymore. One day, we got a thank you note from a woman in another town. She'd read one of our letters in a newsletter at her senior center. She said she thought she was the only one. She wasn't. There are more of us than they know. We've started calling ourselves the Silver Riders. Esther made little pins with pens on them. We wear them like armor. We're not marching. We're not shouting. But we're writing. Steadily. Intentionally. Loud enough that someone will hear. We meet in quiet rooms, drink lukewarm tea, and pass the pen like a torch. For every pen they handed to steal from us, we found one to write back. Some of us have won back homes. Others have just won back their voices. And that's something. That's everything. There's power in writing things down. In saying, this happened, and I am still here. There's power in looking another woman in the eye and knowing she understands, that she believes you, that she's got paper and ink ready if you need it. Sometimes, I look around the circle and I think, we're not broken. We're not bitter. We're blooming late, maybe, but with purpose, with clarity. We're writing the endings they thought they could deny us. And we're writing them beautifully. I bring extra pens now, just in case someone new walks through the door. And every time I pass one across the table, I smile, because I know exactly what that pen will do. It will remember. It will protect. It will roar in cursive. We are not the forgotten. We are the authors. There are more of us than they know. It's all in order now. The will, the witnesses, the notarized seals, clean lines, clean language. No loopholes, no room for confusion. I made sure of that. Everything I worked for, the house, the savings, the little gold locket tucked in the back of my drawer goes exactly where it should. The local women's shelter, where they teach single mothers how to budget and breathe. The city library, where I shelved books when my knees were younger. And the literacy program at the school where I used to stay late, typing for teachers who never remembered my birthday. They'll all get a piece of me. Not because I owe them, because they gave me something quietly beautiful in return. Dignity, purpose, the chance to leave behind more than a bruised silence. My granddaughter won't receive a penny, not a dish, not a scarf, not a photograph. All she'll get is a padded envelope with a stamped copy of the court verdict. Fraud, reversed ownership, returned assets, black ink on white paper, nothing more, nothing less. Her name is printed there, but mine is the one that stands, the one the judge circled in his final ruling, the one that couldn't be erased, no matter how smooth her forgery was. She'll read it, or maybe she won't, but it will find her, eventually, like all truth does. I also left something else behind a small wooden chest. It's nothing fancy, just oak and hinges and soft velvet inside. But inside it are letters. Not to my family, to girls. The ones who are told to hush, to wait, to give more than they get. The ones who are called dramatic when they ask too many questions. The ones who already know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone who once kissed their forehead. Each letter is handwritten. Each one begins with the same line. You are not confused. You are seeing clearly. I hope someday one of them finds it. I hope she feels her spine straighten when she reads my words. I didn't rewrite the past. I underlined the truth. Every memory, every bruise, every small moment I used to dismiss, I marked it. I claimed it. I made it part of the story, not the shadow. This was never about revenge. It was about recognition. About letting my name be said without pity or pause. About planting something that will grow long after I'm gone. There's a quiet victory in knowing exactly who you are even when no one claps for it. Even when the phone doesn't ring and the mailbox stays empty, I sit with that now, in my favorite chair, beside the same pen that started it all. I don't need noise. I don't need praise. I just need the truth. Laid out like a road I walked with steady feet. They'll learn my name in the will, not as a signature to steal, but as a story that stood.